Hello, my name is David Luebbert, and I am an experienced artist. I've been an artist all my life, starting as a child, learning how to draw, then how to compose art in school, how to find proportions, how to learn the correct way, traditionally, to create art. There are many different ways to make art, and the last few decades I've gradually eased into digital art, which has its advantages. Of course, the biggest advantages are, to me, there's no buildup of media, no shelves with stacked canvases and paintings and drawings and all that stuff. Every time I create a work of art, it becomes a digital file. That digital file can then be shared on digital galleries, websites, whatever I want to do. I can have it printed out and hang it on a wall, or other people can. I prefer digital art because to me it's faster, it's easier, there's no mess to clean up. Thanks to technology such as the stylus and the display, as I have here. This is a Cintiq. I think it's a UX. It's pretty old now, ancient. I think I've had it since 2013 maybe, and it still works fine. I think now there are competing companies that compete with Wacom that make a much less expensive display. And if I had to get another one, I like to look for deals. I probably would try out something like that, one of their competitors. Anyway, back to digital art. Everything I did traditionally as an artist, I can use here as a digital artist. All the art theories and lessons I learned as a traditional artist, I can apply here as well. So for this first lesson today, I'm going to draw this little girl with the sunglasses, and I use my 4-step method, the easy way to paint a digital picture. 4-step easy way. The first step to me is creation of the sketch. When I create the sketch, I keep it on this top layer over here after I create it, and it's a permanent fixture in this digital process of painting. If I were just doing a sketch alone, I wouldn't have all these layers. I would just have one layer, because just like a pencil sketch, on a sheet of paper, sketch paper, I'm not going to have layers and layers of pencil on different sheets of paper. I'm going to keep that one sheet of paper. My layering would be a very gradual thing on a sheet of paper. Say this was a sheet of paper instead of a Cintiq display. My pencil would do the layering itself, and it would be a very gradual process. First I would find the right proportions for her head, for these glasses, the nose, the mouth, the ear, and then her clothing down here and maybe the background. But it would be very gradual. I would start with very light outlines, because when you have a pencil, you don't want to have to make a big mess erasing. You know, you've used an eraser like I have, and when I first started using an eraser, of course, I would just keep going and going. Eventually there'd be a hole in the paper, in the canvas, or whatever you call it. But anyway, back to my digital process, my 4-step digital painting process. The most important one to me, maybe not all artists are the same, but the most basic and important part of that process to me is creating a sketch. And unlike a traditional painting, where this would be a canvas and I would use oil, acrylic, or some other medium to paint, that sketch would get covered up. That's why I love digital painting much more than traditional. Or say it was a watercolor picture, and the artist would draw in some outlines before adding watercolor. That might be a gradual thing, and you might still see some pencil lines even at the end of the watercolor painting. But say it's acrylic or oil, maybe an acrylic or oil artist doesn't even do a sketch. Maybe the oil or acrylic painter simply starts building in forms, light forms here, for up here, say, for instance, and maybe for the skin down here, and for instance, and then maybe some forms here for the glass lenses, etc. And then gradually adds the strokes. And when that type of artist wants it to look proportional or correct, as they would teach a person in art school. I mean, if you want to do a realistic painting, then you have to have the proportions correct. But back again here to the digital painting, I prefer digital painting because I can keep that sketch on top, and then I paint on a lower level down here. Say, here's the sketch layer. I will go ahead and name this layer. Sketch. I will keep that on top. And then I can turn it on and off to check my proportions as the painting progresses. And by the way, I have other instructional videos I made about while I was doing digital paintings, and I did not yet have a webcam and microphone to use. I simply just wrote the instructions onto the screen on a separate layer, and then I would delete that layer. So I'm trying this out for the first time with my voice, and hopefully it will not sound too strange. It's really strange well, for me, when I hear my own voice, it sounds strange at first, but it's a good practice, because the more I use my voice and hear it, I think I can learn from those experiences. Say, for instance, I mispronounce something, or my, what do you call it, when I try to pronounce a word, what's the word where you get every syllable, and, articulation. Yes, articulation. I could say it like that, Or I could say articulation. Now, which one is easier to understand? Articulation or articulation? I was kind of lazy on the second pronunciation. So it's a good practice, I think, just as a voice musician would sing a song. You know, you could sing the song clearly so that people could understand it. Say, for instance, a popular group who pronounced their lyrics very clearly. For instance, the Beatles. You could always understand their words. So it helped to develop the music and the song to get those ideas into the listener's head. In the same way, here will be a good practice for me from now on. I will just use my voice, and I think over time I can save a lot of time by not having to scribble my notes on the screen like I did in all these other videos before. And this is going to be a longer video initially. This is my first one with the microphone. Why will it be longer? Well, because I'm explaining all this stuff about the process, for one thing. And secondly, I'm going to show you how I do the sketch of this little girl first. In fact, I think this one video about the sketch I will keep separate. And I will keep it separate mainly because also, besides being a sketch in itself, it's kind of a test of this process for me. Once I get this video finished, I will go back and review it, perhaps add some background music. Oh, that's another story in itself. I will get into that someday. I create my own music so I don't have to worry about anybody's copyrights. And I have my own process of doing it that I've been studying for months and developed. It works okay. I mean, I'm not going to win a Grammy or anything like that. Wouldn't even think of it. But I have fun doing it, and I can add music to my videos, and it's all based on my programming of the software. You know, I pick the musical scale to use. I pick the way the instruments will behave, the tempo, the instrument sounds, and all this stuff. It is so much fun. It might even be more fun than digital painting. I don't know. Digital painting is a blast. And I'm glad I got this microphone because it's much easier just to talk than it is to think of things to write down and then erase them and all that stuff. And I can just go on and on for hours. Of course, I'm not going to. But this is my first one with a voice. So it's kind of a celebration for me. I'm free. Yay! Coffee. That's a good thing. Okay, now, back to my digital painting. The first of the 4 steps I use, the most important to me, is the sketch. I have the sketch on this top layer. So far, so good. And I want to make sure I'm recording. Yes, I am. So that I haven't just wasted 14 minutes and 10 seconds. I can't believe it's been 14 minutes and 10 seconds. But anyway, I'm using Corel Painter 2020. They come out with a new version every year, but I don't feel the need to upgrade every year. They're so similar, and they've improved the versions each year. They get faster and more efficient with more features. So anyway, I have my my favorite art tools here that I've saved in this palette. I like this flat color tool because when I need a straight line that does not change with the pressure of the stylus, I can, see, I'll draw on the sketch level. See how straight that is? I lift up a little bit, and just like a pencil, as I ease up on the pressure, it gets smaller. That's another thing I love about digital art. I can sketch just as I would with a pencil, and it's so familiar to me. It's wonderful. My second and probably most important tool I like is the Scratchboard Tool, which comes under the category, I'll show you, of, where are you, pens and pencils. Here it is right here, pens and pencils, Scratchboard Tool. I learned from another digital artist years ago that this tool is wonderful because up here, okay, the size I change, I have this modified on my stylus, this top or first button. So if I press down on it, I can change the size of the tool nib. I think that's the right word, nib. So that I do right here. But if I want, say I turn this to 100% opacity, when I press down with pressure, differences in pressure, the nib size will change. That's the way I have it programmed. The nib size will change according to my hand pressure. I just do it a little bit. Look at that tiny little line. That's great. I keep pressing down, bigger and bigger and bigger. Now a pencil will not do that, will it? A pencil might get, oh, that big, that big. Now this pencil is a graphite pencil that I love. Look how big that, it's not lead, it's graphite, but look how big that cylinder of graphite is. I can hold it sideways. It could make a pretty big stroke, but not like this. Look at that. That's incredible. I do it even bigger. I could start tiny, and all in one stroke I can make a huge swath of color, or in this case black. But getting back to this tool itself, the Scratchboard tool, that comes with Corel Painter. I don't know about Paint Shop or whatever it is other people use, but if I go up to here and change opacity down to about 12%, this is wonderful because it provides randomness. It provides that capriciousness that I strive for at times. Say, for instance, I'm building in some texture. Look at that. I changed the difference in my hand pressure. Say, for instance, I needed grass or bushes, and I just wanted to do it quickly. I needed some kind of texture. Just a tiny bit of difference in pressure can come up with all kinds of randomness and beauty that exists in our universe that you cannot, a human being could not possibly create. To try to capture what we see in nature, sometimes you have to have the ability to create randomness, and this is a great tool for it. I have other tools that will do that too, but this is my favorite. Let me undo those. The digital artist is not supposed to use undo. According to some digital artists I have followed, the digital artist is supposed to operate the same as he or she would as a traditional artist. Maybe erase, but don't undo. But, you know, each of this is different. Sometimes I use undo, sometimes I don't. And then I have other tools I like. Smear. Smear is just about as important as, let me show you. Smear, I think, is after my, that's why it's up here at the top, after my Scratchboard tool. Right at that same level. Because say I develop some randomness here. Now, I need to smooth out some of those hard edges. And it's on this top layer, so even if I smooth this top layer and click it off, click that layer off, it's not going to affect the canvas layer. Okay, so let me smooth this stuff out. Look how that beautifully makes such a perfect blend, you know, and I can adjust the opacity of this. All of these things are modifiable, so I get a large amount of smooth, or I can get a very gradual amount of smoothness. I like the gradualness because I'd rather be slow and sure than fast and messy and, you know, create a bad accident from my haste. I'm going to undo all those things I did. I may use more undos than I have. Okay. Alright, and then I have other tools I love, but I won't get into all those now. Some belong to the same category, such as this row is all about creating clouds and blending them. Clouds, to me, are very enjoyable to paint and can be very difficult, and they need randomness as well. And they need blending and smoothing, pushing around. Here's a distorto, which comes in handy. A spray, a pepper, it makes little tiny fine dots. Airbrush. Airbrush is very important to me. You can make very gradual gradations of color and shade and highlights and various other things. This bottom row or these two bottom rows are mostly particle effects, which is unique to at least this software. It probably by now is in many others, but pattern pens, they spray out effects, which is very cool. Let me put this back over. I like this two monitor display. Okay, I got my reference image down there. Why is it so small? There's no reason I can't make this reference image bigger. Whoops. Whoa, what's happening here? Well, let's see. Let me put that there for a second. I can make this, I think, this big. Oh, bear with me. I'm going to get to the sketch, I promise. I'm just kind of preparing for it. Okay, I'll keep this under my reference sketch so I can refer to it and see it and get to it underneath. Okay, side by side. Now I can see these categories up here. And then if I need them, I just click on that. But I will put this, when I'm ready to paint, I will put this little girl's reference image over there onto the reference image. Then, when I need color, I can go over there with my pen, my stylus, pick up the color, come back here, and paint it in. But that's later. That's steps 2, 3, and 4. This video is only about the sketch, the very important sketch. So let me start that finally, if I can quit yapping. Oh yeah, where's my I haven't painted in a few months. Oh, okay. Oh, I know what I did. You know what? I can put this over here with these. I should have it on my primary screen so that I can grab these tools when I need them. This does not have to be as big. I only use it every so often. And yeah, that's good. Okay, now I can grab the tools I need quickly without having to shift over to the other monitor. And then this is a history of my art tools up here, which is very good. It shows the latest ones that I've used. So I'm going to use my scratch tool for the sketch, and I'm going to use black. So here's my Scratchboard Tool. Here's sketch. So we're ready to go on the sketch. Now, with a digital painting, what another advantage is that I can just trace this, and it will be very accurate. You know, all I got to do is follow the lines like a little kid in a coloring book. Just stay in the lines, make your forms, and then I'll have the sketch. But before I do that, the easy way, I want to go through and show how, if this little girl were sitting right in front of me as a model, how I could use my sense of perception and find the correct proportions, so that, because if I'm out in the world with a sketch pad, or even if I have a tablet and I don't want to take a shot with my tablet and use the tablet stylus like I'm doing here, if I have a sheet of paper and a pencil, I'm going to have to not use technology, but my sense, my inner sense in my brain of perception. Okay, so let me go through some preparatory ideas here. I'll show you how I do things. I have to be able to measure what's out there in the real world so that I can find the right proportions. I could use my pencil, for instance. I could hold it out at arm's length so it's calibrated, so the measurements stay calibrated. If I measure something at 3 feet with my pencil, and the next time I measure it halfway at 1.5 feet, 18 inches from my eyes, well, of course it's going to be a different length. So I keep my arm out as far as I can for each measurement. In this case, I'm using my pencil. Some artists, or I sometimes too, use my hand itself for measurements. I hold my hand out, use my thumb, fingers, whatever. Just make sure it's always at the same distance. And then I can take that measurement and build it against another measurement, say X dimension, Y dimension. Use a lot of X and Y's when you're finding proportions. Okay, but I'm going to do it right here on screen. I'm going to hold my stylus up. First, I'm going to center the subject. This little girl's face is the subject. Now, what is right? I'd like to start in the center. What looks like the center of this? Let's see. If I intersect, I make an imaginary line from this corner to this corner, this corner to this corner. if those are straight, then that would be the center where they intersect. So it looks like, let's see, what I got here, and then imaginary line. I'd say the intersection would be right about here. I'll make a little red. That'll be my flat. Red X, okay? That's my imaginary center. If I was drawing with a pencil on white paper, I would have a black pencil, and this would be a little black X. Not very dark, maybe just barely light so I could just see it, because that's going to be covered up in a traditional sketch. Okay, so I have that. That's my imaginary center. Okay, now I want to find the edge of her glasses, the outside edges, and then the tops and bottoms of her glasses. And they're pretty level. You know, they don't angle too much. I think they angle down to the right a little bit. Barely. But I'm not going to worry about that right now. Say I have my X down on this sheet of paper. I got to find this point, this side of the glasses. So let me measure. Now, I'm not going to use the sides of the paper for calibration, because this could be a different length this way or height that way. I'm going to stick with the subject. This is what I'm interested in, not the periphery of all this stuff. Okay, I want to get her right. So I use, let me see, I got to find things in this subject. Okay, say I want to, here's a center point. This is not exact because the paper could be off a little bit. But it looks like, let's see, say this clump of fur down here. I'll use this for my bottom. Okay. All right, good. Right here, this highlight of fur, that's going to be an important stake. I just pounded the stake down into the ground. Pretend this is a plot of land where you're going to build a house, okay? You can think of it that way. This is flat, you're looking down at it. You need to build this house on this plot of ground. Okay, so we have this down here. Good, now we can use that measurement from the center to that. I pull it up here. That distance from here to here, I'm going to raise that up, and it's going to be up here. So I make my mark up here. You can do any subject this way, unless it's moving, and then that takes a lot more articulation and imagination and patience. But hopefully she's going to sit still for us and stay in the same exact pose for an hour. This is a lot to ask, so that's why artists like photographs. Okay, we have that measurement. It's the same as this, and this part of her hair. Okay. All right, now, oh boy, let's see if this distance is the same as where that would relate to her glasses. That's kind of elusive. Let's see over here. Okay, good. Try to find relationships, XY relationships. See how this distance is the same as this edge of her glasses, this lens on the right, to the side of her ear. Okay, I would make, we've done vertical measurements, now we're going to start horizontal measurements. So I'm going to take a spot on my paper next to this, next to the center point, and mark that there. And then we will find where her ear is from that little mark right there. So I would mark this. Okay, this distance is the same as this distance. Vertical distance here is the same as this horizontal distance here. Alright, good. Now, we have that correct proportion, or it will at least look pretty close. By the way, I wear this little one-finger glove so that my oily skin or dirty skin will not get my screen all dirty, and it works very well. You can make these, but I bought this for about, I don't know, $10 a long time ago, and it lasts forever. Okay, so we have that. Now let's look at these relationships vertically. See this nostril here? Look how it lines up with the side of this glass lens pretty closely. And then, so you can mark that little nostril there. Okay. Now if you come down from the center point, the edge of her lip here is very close. You could say, okay, I got that center here, center that comes down vertically, and just move over a little bit, and you can check it with this line here. Here's the nostril line. If you bring this line down from the eyeglasses to this center line, look at the edge of her lip. It looks like it's about a third of this distance. So here's the one we want, but you can check it. It's about a third, right? Okay, so here's the edge of her lip. Let me erase. I don't need these. Let me see. Where's that eraser? I didn't have the eraser programmed into the end of this stylus. Okay, so I don't need, dadgummit. Alright, don't need that little measurement line. Okay, and don't really need that there. We know where the lip is. Now let's find other relationships. Okay, I like to use halfway points because those are easy to discern. Let me see if this is about halfway from here to here. Okay, now I will mark that halfway point and use it just for calibration for other areas. Now let me see if this is close to anything else. Yeah, look at that. The halfway point between these two lines, I can note, then turn it 90 degrees, and I'll have the distance of this vertical measurement of this left lens. So let me do that. I turn it. It's not exact. The lens is a little bigger. I'd say it's about, it only came up to about here, but you can use your sense of perception to increase that a little bit. So you have that distance. Okay, good. See how you take one measurement and use that to calibrate other areas to come up with the correct proportions, or nearly correct proportions. Now this, let's check this one over here. There's that this halfway point between these two measurements. Let me see how it relates to this lens. That's pretty close too, and I don't have to increase it over there. I just go, okay, there's that measurement. I turn it, and it would be the height of this dark lens over here. And we know that this has slanted down a little bit, so I wouldn't make it straight to the right. I would go to the right and go down a little bit, sort of right there. And let me get that measurement again. Turn it 90 degrees. Yeah, it would come down to about here. Okay, have that measurement. And I would be doing this in space with my arm fully extended, so it keeps in calibration with all the other measurements. And I would be doing that like that, see? Or I could just use my thumb, but this doesn't move like my thumb and my fingers do. Something hard, maybe a ruler, or a paint stick, or a stick, or brick, whatever it is you got to use. Alright, now let's see where this nostril is. Here's that halfway point. Okay, I'm going to see if this nostril is halfway between this line and this halfway point line. Okay, so I will try to get halfway. That looks about halfway. And actually, it's not the nostril. This halfway point line, let me get it again, halfway point, would be the distance from here. That doesn't look right. Oh, it's too far over. It's more like here. Halfway, halfway. Yeah. Okay, this halfway line, come down. It's right where the edge of this nose is, okay? And then this nostril, it can easily be seen to be about halfway from here to here. Okay? And then after making that measurement, you can kind of use your sense of perception to draw on that nostril. Alright, now to find this side of the nose, here's the center point of the whole image. If you came down here, it would be just a little bit to the left between this line and this line. And by the way, you could have these lightly drawn in measurement lines on your paper when you sketch it. Nothing wrong with that. If you do it lightly, don't do it real hard, because then you'll have to erase and make a big mess that would be underneath your final sketch. You don't want that. These on paper would be very light, just dark enough for you to see. Okay, now this line here we got from the glasses. Here's a center line. Extend those downward. The edge of her nose is almost halfway between those two lines, just a little bit to the right. Okay, now let's find where her lips are. On girls, the most important things that I learned about the girls' faces, females' faces, are that they love the most to be accented are the mouth and the eyes. In this case, we have it easy. Eyes can be very technical and complicated. But these are just lenses, very easy. But for now, the most important thing on this girl's face would be her lips. Girls love and women love to have their lips accented, because lips can be very beautiful, just like their eyes and their hair. Secondary, you don't want to make the nose too accented, because girls don't want to be seen with big bulging noses as a general rule. Of course, there's always exceptions. And the ears, I don't think they mind their ears accented too much, if you do a good job on them. Now the lips. Here's this mark down here. Let's see where the lips are in relationship to this line and this line. Okay, if I go down here. All right. Now this is the opening of the lips is a little too high, but I found that if I measure from the bottom lip right here down to this line, that's the same measurement distance as from the bottom lip to this horizontal line we came up with early. So let me check it just one more time. Looks good. Looks good. Okay. So from the bottom lip to this line, this horizontal line, is the same distance as from here to here. Okay? We have that correct, or close proportion that we can record on our paper. Now let's figure out, if we were going to make the top of the lip, where would that be? Well, we can say that the bottom of the eyeglasses are slightly below this line. Okay, because there's a rim, so just a little bit downward of the lens on the right side, put this horizontal line. Now that easily can be seen to correspond with the bottom of her nose. And we know that the edge is here, so we'll extend that over. We know that this edge is here on the left, so we'll make a little curve lightly. Now we have the bottom of her nose, because these curves end right here under the nostrils. Now you can see that the lips, that space from the bottom of the lip to the top lip, see how close it is. It is very close to being halfway from here to here. So if you make a halfway mark, it'll reach the top of her lips. Okay? Now halfway between the top of her lip and the bottom of the lip is the opening of her lip, of her mouth. Okay, good. Now, let's see, we might be able to find that. Yeah, okay. This distance from her right nostril to, let's say, the opening of this nostril here. Bring that down a little bit. Of course, here's the center of the nostril, this line here. So the edge is going to be a little bit over, probably about halfway between this line and the side of her nose line, right about here. Okay, so you take that down. We'll use that. It gets very complicated, but if you get used to doing it this way, you can have a very accurate drawing of anything. Okay, this line here, if you double this, bring it over here, flip it over here, you're going to have the edge of her lip over, edge of her mouth over here. Now, your paper may not look this messy because I'm adding extra things so that I can explain them. To me, a lot of times I'll just make a little line here, a little line there. I won't have all these X's and the arrows and all that stuff. I'm just showing you what the dimensions are. You can have your own way of recording the measurements, okay? So now we have from here to here, and then this is measured from these two lines a third of the way through here, remember? And so we have that. Now, to create the lip or the mouth, you can use your sense of perception. Measure this. If you do a straight line across from the corner of her lips, of course they're angled a little bit too, angled just like the glasses. They're not straight. I mean, her lips are straight, but her head is tilted a tiny bit so that this corner of the mouth goes down a little bit to the right. See, it's not straight across. It's easy to see, at least I can see it from where I am. Now, if you take this measurement, we know that here's the center of her lips. This is going to be a little higher than this center, right? Because it curves up. So we could just use our sense of perception. We brought it down here from this upper corner. Now this corner over here, you can see is slightly above this center line, so it's going to go up like that. All right, now we got the opening of her lips figured out. After we've done that, we can use our sense of perception to make an opposite type curve to the center of her upper lip. Do the same over here. Then at the bottom, using our best judgment and sense of perception, make a little curl down there through that line up there. Now, okay, there's the drawing itself. We have the lips done. Basically, that's it. And the nostrils. That's what we figured so far. It's a long process. It can be, but it's really long because I'm explaining it. In the future, I'm just going to trace these things out. This is kind of my model of how to find good proportions on your paper that you can extract from your subject, whatever your subject is. This is just a demonstration of how I do it. Okay. All right, we know the height of this lens. We know the height of this lens. Now I need to find how long to make these rims. Let me take my pencil, try to come up with some measurements. Now this lens over here is closer to the camera, so using perspective, of course this lens is going to be larger because it's not perpendicular. These lenses are not perpendicular to the viewer, to the camera. They're slightly slanted this way. So look at my hand. Perpendicular, slanted. Of course, this side of my hand is becoming larger. That's what these glasses are doing, just slightly. So that has to be taken into consideration. This lens is slightly bigger because it's closer closer to the viewer. Alright, so let me make some visual calculations here. This could be a little bit tough, but I will find something that will be close. Let me take this. I'll do it in reverse. Okay. Yes, I found it. Okay. Here's the center line, the center point of our whole study. Bring this center point down to the edge of her lip on the left. Okay, that distance from the center line to the edge of her left lip, measure that, bring it up 90 degrees, then you'll have the length of the glasses here. Now we know we can make the rim of this glass left lens over here. We can make the bottom directly to the left of this nostril, and then this distance from the center to the edge of her lip is the same as this rim to the top of this rim. Okay? I'm just drawing these lines in to show you the relationships. Okay, so we have the length of this lens. Now we need to find the length of this lens. I think we already did that, so that's good. Now, we need to find out, we have the side of this lens right here. We need to find out how wide these glasses are when you put these lenses together. How will we do that? Good question. I ask myself. I tell myself. Oh, that's pretty easy. Yeah, okay. This halfway, one of the early measurements we made from this center point down to this line, this distance is the same as, see this end of the eyeglasses in the front, this corner here is the same from here to the center line. Let me make sure I have that right again. Yeah, so we have this measurement. Same as this one. Okay, now that we have that, we need to find how to put these all together horizontally. Okay. The distance, take this left nostril here, the right edge of this left nostril, extend that upward, will give you not only this, edge here of this lens rim, but yeah, you take the distance of this, this distance from the corner of our eyeglasses to this left side of the rim here is the same as this distance. Just unique symbols just to show you, to identify them easily. Okay. So we have a lot of correct proportional things. Once we get to where we're pretty much controlling our proportions correctly, we can then use our sense of perception, and I would just, the ear not being as important as the eyes and the mouth and the nose, just let me see, that would be this line here to this line here. You can see this edge of the ear is a little bit more bigger than this space. That would only be about here. If you multiply this space, it would only come to about here, about a third of the way, or 2/3 of the way through her ear measurement. So just add another third here, and then we can draw in things, estimate the ear. There's a little earring, and then this jaw line is important. So how do we find that? Another good question. And that's important because this jawline holds the entire bottom shape of her head. And we don't want that looking bad. I mean, it would change her whole personality. So, let me see here. Let me see. How do I want to do that? Okay, let me make a measurement from the bottom of her lip to this initial reference point. If we go halfway down here, right here, then we can see that this line where her chin starts down here, the right of her chin, this is halfway between the bottom lip and this reference line on the fur. Here's halfway. Now, if we go up, if we bisect that measurement right here, this is 1/4, right? Here's another 1/4 down here, which we don't need. But here's halfway, here's 1/4, and you can see that is where this chin begins. And guess what? It's right under that center point that we started with, right here, right directly underneath. That's convenient. So how far over does it go till it meets the bottom of the rim here? We need to find that dimension, that distance. Okay, we can measure that in space, find something on the image that is the same. What would that be? No. Okay, alright, easy. The distance from this nostril to this side of the nostril, that is the same as the center point vertical line to the bottom of this eyeglass rim where it intersects with her chin, right there. So now that we have that beginning point of the chin and where it hits that rim, we can draw that in. Okay, now over here it's much easier. You see where the edge of her ear is. Just kind of arc that down a little bit. Very just off the vertical a little bit. I don't know, what is that, 5 degrees maybe? Okay, so we have those lines. Doesn't look that great right now, does it? Because we still have some major lines to finish here. Now the top of her ear here. How did we get the top of her ear? I think we just kind of used our perception. But we know where the top of the eyeglass rim is here. So if we know where that is, we can angle down a little bit and extend that through this stem of the eyeglasses to the left. And we know that, oh, let's see. We know where this side of the rim is, this side of the rim, and we know where this corner of the eyeglasses is here. Let's take a measurement from the nostrils. Okay, since this is so curved and gradual, I think you can just use your perception and kind of estimate. See, this here would be underneath this line, of course, dips down, and this line here is a little bit lower than this line over here. So we would just keep that in mind, draw it over. This is underneath the hair, but it's good to kind of estimate where those edges are. Okay, now this point here under the nose part of the glasses, the eyeglasses, how far down would that be? It's about the distance of one of her nostrils, right? Like this left nostril. Looks like it's a little shorter than that right here. Let me get a different color. About that distance, right? Now as far as this curve, you can see this is not a perfect circle. But when I do curves, I like to make guide dots. Okay, we know this one is right, and we can kind of estimate where this line is going. I know this is not a perfect circle, but this part looks pretty close to the quarter of a perfect circle. So I would make guide dots on my paper, and then over here too. It's just that if there were a circle here, the center would probably be about here, right? It kind of curves this way. And if this were a quarter of a circle here, it looks like the center of that circle would be, I don't know, about here. Radiate out from that point. And then once we do that, we can estimate where this inner circle is of the lens. Of course, I wouldn't be doing this in colored pencil on my paper, but I have such a mess of demonstrating lines that I have to keep them separated so you can see what's going on here. Okay, now we know where the edge of this eyeglass is here. Where does this start? This bottom of this eyeglass start? Well, let's find out, shall we? Let's use lines we already have measured. Oh, okay. Well, that's pretty easy. It's about the distance of this nostril. Right about here. Okay. So we have that proportion. How far in would it be from this edge to here? About the size of that nostril. Okay? And then we can try to figure out what type of curve this is. This is a really long curve here. And it looks like if this were part of a circle, the center point of that circle would be up here somewhere. And this is a much tighter curve down here, like it belongs to a smaller circle, where the point would be about here, radiating equidistantly down to this curve, right? Doesn't look like much yet, does it? This is very complex, these eyeglasses, when you get right down to it. All right. Now if we have these proportions, we can use our sense of perception. Instead of measuring everything, we already have these edges of the forms, the major parts of the forms. We can use our sense of perception to estimate where these lenses are. Just try to get it as close as you can. Okay, basically, we're pretty much done making measurements, proportional measurements. This is very difficult, and there's a lot to remember here, but your proportional measurements will not look this messy. I'm just showing you how I came up with these measurements, and then how I relate them to each other. Of course, what happened here? Oh, get a new layer. Of course, if you want to do it the easy way, you just make your own sketch right on top of the example. Of course, digital art. That's why it's so much easier and more convenient. But you have to have a computer then, or a tablet, and a stylus. So here we are. If I use a sketch, we have the basic measurements. I know where these let me put a layer up here. Whoops. Okay, I know where these lenses are going to be. Let's fill in inside the, like I'm coloring. I'll fill inside these lines that we came up with. Okay, and now the lips. And get a pink color. Alright, now that does look like something, doesn't it? And let me get a darker color for the nostrils. Well, there you go. Good beginning. Of course, I need to erase that a little bit. I got out of the line. I didn't learn that as a preschooler. I need to go back to preschool. Alright. Okay, see, that's pretty accurate. Turn the sketch back on. Alright, and if I put in some skin that's almost like her lips. Whoops. Way off. Rounder glasses. It's going to be very messy, but it's just to show you that this process does work. Whoops. How did that happen? It's supposed to be an eraser. I never went to kindergarten. That must be why I'm so bad at staying in the lines. It's supposed to revert back to the proper tool. Didn't do that. Okay, you can see that the proportions look pretty close. I need to spend a lot of time detailing this. And kind of went over that nostril. See, the basic structure is there. So in a way, our preparation went pretty well. Now when I do the painting, I'm not going to go through this sketch again. I am just going to trace, and I'll have my outline to use for the whole digital painting. But anyway, I wanted to show you this process that I use, and I have explained with my pencil sketches, such as the one that can be found on this channel called Coca-Cola Santa Claus, and others. I show how to go through this process, but I've never done it on a digital on a display. I've never shown how I do it in this form, because I usually don't do it in this form. I usually just outline the subject, and then if I want to be creative and you know, change the composition itself, I may get a different photo and draw something else in, outline that, you know, and then just have my own new creation, my own new composition that is different from this subject or a separate subject. I may combine subjects or do something crazy, you know. The sky's the limit. Your imagination is the limit. So anyway, this video is at an end. Come back when I do the painting, please.